Good morning, everyone. I hope you are safe and well. My name is Craig Garrett, and I'm the Digital Advancement Academy Manager at Bentley Systems here in Dubai. And I'd like to welcome you to day 3 of the annual Value Engineering Summit. Of course, this year being brought to you virtually, wherever you may be connecting on computers and mobile devices from homes or offices alike. This digital event is brought to you by the Middle East Consultant and Big Project Middle East. The panel discussion will run for about 45 minutes, following which we will address questions from the audience. So please feel free at any time to drop your questions in the chat box with your email address. So if we are not able to address the questions during the 15-minute Q&A session at the end, we can contact you after the discussion. Please keep your questions as brief as possible. I'm sure, like myself, you've enjoyed the first 2 days of the summit and the panel discussions already taken place. Today's panel will discuss, is it time to heed the call of technology? I have with me today some wonderful speakers. And if I could just introduce to you, I see we may have lost one of our speakers. If I could just introduce our current 2 speakers to you. First of all, Najia Tala, Head of Construction and Manufacturing at Autodesk, EMEA and Emerging Countries. Najia has led the construction and manufacturing industries for Autodesk since 2013. He focuses on evangelizing Autodesk's vision for the future of those industries, as well as cultivating and sustaining the firm's relationships with strategic industry leaders, clients, and associations. He has been in the engineering technology sector for nearly 20 years after working in the industry as regional manager for Aviva Solutions and project engineering lead for Petrofac. He holds a master's degree in mechanical engineering and is a published author on the research topic of advanced design techniques such as generative design. Also with us today is Stefan Dagenart, Managing Director and Associate Partner with Drees and Sommer Middle East. Stefan has been working with Drees and Sommer since 2000 and has extensive experience in the field of real estate development consulting and project management, where he oversees a large team of professionals. Stefan holds a degree in civil engineering and is currently leading the strategic growth of Drees and Sommer in the Middle East, fortifying the company's place in the region. Our other speaker, if he manages to join us, I'll introduce at that time. I hope I did our panelists justice by their introductions. So let's get started. Finding new efficiencies in optimizing design and delivery is more important than ever. New technology is frequently said to be a game changer, as firms need to differentiate themselves in a highly competitive sector. However, cost concerns and an aversion to technology has meant that many construction companies have only taken incremental steps into integrating technology into their thinking and workflows. Hopefully, in the panel today, we'll explore what new technology could potentially bring to the table in terms of design and delivery in the current period, and the potential challenges of pulling off such a transition during these challenging times. If I could just ask our panelists in order the same question to begin with, starting with Naji. What's your experience, and if you can give us a real project example, that would be great. What's your experience of technology adoption and or organizational transition during these challenging times? And has the new safety regulations pushed construction companies to adopt existing or emerging tech tools to keep their projects on track? Naji.
I believe we can't hear you, Naji.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Me? All right.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Craig, good morning. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, audience. I hope everyone's keeping safe and pulling through these really challenging times. Craig, if I start with the basics, one of the defining terms of these times has been social distancing. And companies in the industry have had to balance social distancing to look after the safety of their people from one side, and obviously to abide by local regulation. Yet they wanted to balance that with business continuity. One of the things that we've seen is a relatively seamless shift to working from home. When it comes to technology. Now, I understand that design is always a team sport, and there are social aspects of design that that cannot be easily replaced by technology. Yet, I've seen several examples locally. Latest was in a discussion I was having with Ralph Steinhauer of RSP, who shared that they've asked their employees to take their machines home to shift from working from home, and that happened on a Thursday afternoon. Their back office staff were working on putting all their models on the cloud, and Saturday morning they did a test for 50 people, and out of these 50 people, only 3 had some minor issues that were readily solved, and their workload actually continued. So their efforts on projects like Al Wasl Dome were seamless because of a technology that they use now, and that was probably not an option 5 or 6 years ago.
Great example, and I actually saw that interview myself, so I can. That was a really good example. Stefan, again, the same question to yourself about technology adoption in these challenging times.
Sure. Good morning, Craig. Good morning, Naji. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Yeah, I would say, let's say, as Drees and Sommer, we fairly adapted quickly to the new reality. We are usually very technology-driven, very lean, very flexible in any case, but we adopted, let's say, social distancing and introduction of technology working from home in the early days of March directly. And as a company, we've put basically usually from 400 people who work somewhere online from home or from the go, suddenly overnight to 4,000 people working basically all from home without any major impact on our internal operations. So that was quite a challenge which our IT had to resolve, but they did it fairly well. And well, then we adapted as a company basically on all the requirements from the government here, from the regulations which have been put into place. What does it mean for the construction side and so on? And we are using, as I said before, technology very much as a backbone of our services in any case. But we have obviously intensified, using even more technology. We're working together with startups in the virtual reality field, where we do the collaboration part now, not only on Microsoft Teams, but we can do this really in a new software with a new tool in order to collaborate and have discussions, let's say, with virtual goggles and look into details and do design coordination and the like. So that is definitely a big push into adopting here new technology. And say live projects examples where we see how technology helps in these times is our cube in Berlin. Let's say one of the smartest buildings in the world and probably the smartest in Europe at the moment, with a lot of technology. And that's a building which can really adapt to those new requirements. It wasn't built for any pandemic, but it is very user-driven, very operational friendly, where you can guide people where to sit and how to increase the climate control and the like. So yeah, technology is definitely helping us to go through those times we are in at the moment.
Thank you again. Good examples. Good examples. From if I can just direct another one back to yourself, Stefan. Then, in terms of obviously in your role as project managers, are we seeing a shift in mindset from the client's perspective? You know, are the clients have to rethink some of their strategies really because of the conditions that we're in? And the other one really is that we're obviously in a value engineering summit. The question would be that, you know, how is that value engineering question being asked in these changing times? Has that changed how we're looking at value engineering? How has our clients' mindset changed?
All right, let me answer the second question first. And let me also be a bit provocative here, because value engineering always sounds like a surprise, right? And to me, if suddenly the discussion comes up in a project, oh, we have to do now value engineering, to me it means something went wrong in the first place. This shouldn't happen. And this is why we would rather prefer to discuss about engineering value, because we see it as our responsibility to be in control of the cost and the timeline of a project, very much so, from the first idea to design, construction, and handover. This must be clear. So there shouldn't be the need for value engineering unless there's really a change of the project brief, a change of environment, or a pandemic like we are in now, where the parameters have maybe completely changed for our clients, for developers, and they have to now pivot and adapt to it. And then value engineering is definitely required, where we say what makes sense for the developer to build. Do they have to adapt long term and change design? Do they have to cut cost and still maintain a certain value and quality of the product? What's the aim? And I think that's the key for us as well, to have these close discussions with the client, especially in the phase now, where everyone is saying, you know, we have to cut costs. Costs should come down in terms of design services or construction costs, and the contractors should revise their quotations. And a lot has been read about, a lot has been published that previously tendered projects will be retendered to get better prices. So we have to be realistic in both directions, and definitely the demand from developers, from clients, is there to look into the cost and to make things a bit more economical, feasible for them. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
No, well said. And I know that I know I've been watching the other panels on this summit earlier this week, and there were similar sentiments expressed from other panelists, that you know, value engineering should be about doing it right from the beginning, not trying to fix something later. So
yes.
thank you very much for that. Let's move on a little bit then, and just think about this, you know, technology and the whole design and delivery process. So Naji, if I can direct this question to yourself, you know, where are the efficiencies and cost benefits to be had in the real sort of, you know, digitalization of collaboration and technology for design and delivery?
So there's obviously a lot of hardship happening outside now. If I want to be an optimist, I would like to think that the worst is behind us, and that the current situation is getting better. Having said that, I hope in the future we would look at what happened now and look at this as a turning point for the industry, right? We are under strain now because of the pandemic, but long-term, the industry has bigger strains. We have a massive demographic growth that we need to compensate for. And that's coupled with urbanization, a trend of people to move and want to live in cities. It's coupled also with climate change, with a scarcity of resources. So our business as usual mindset in the industry definitely needs to change. Looking at construction alone, we've grown at, our productivity has grown at the rate of an average rate of 1% over the past 20 years. The global economy in that time has averaged 2.8% growth annually. So if we just move the needle from 1.8 to 2.8, that's a $1.6 trillion saving every year in our industry. Now, I know this is really high level. If I go in details, luckily now we can measure the effect of technology on a particular workflow. Stefan mentioned design coordination, for example. If I look around me here, I can also cite some examples that are public. So one example comes from KEO, and their CIO, Damir Jasik, reckons that digitizing their data and using a common data environment, they've calculated a 90% drop in the time required by their engineers to look for data, be it files, drawings, and models. And the value here is not just the saving. The value here is that time, the designer or the engineer, instead of doing something that can be automated by technology, are focusing on their core value of actually designing a better building or a better asset. And, you know, hence starting right from the beginning and doing value engineering at the first time. So a lot like what Stefan was saying. This happens now on the construction site as well. Digitizing things like quality management. You know, literature out there cites a saving of 30% of also looking for data, you know, managing snags, checklists. So technology has a drastic effect on actually saving for our industry, and it needs to start by us saying, okay, we need to do things differently. We need to drop the business as usual mindset and actually look at where we can disrupt the way we do things.
Great answer, and I like that point specifically about the saving in time. You know, time to search for the information. You know, that's something that I talk about a lot. And one of the things that we said there was that, you know, a lot of people are looking to save costs, but actually being more efficient and saving time ultimately saves you costs. So being efficient is the real objective that we're trying to get to. So thank you for that. One of the questions that I had was really more from a manufacturer's perspective, and I wonder maybe Stefan, you could think about this first. Initially, it was about you know, the thinking about modular construction, but in specific terms about how materials are being delivered to site, and how that sort of process is changing in the current situation, and that maybe we're looking to adopt a more just-in-time delivery type process because we don't have the staff, we don't have the transportation, etc.
Sure. Well, I would say modular construction is definitely one of the major way forward. Now, will the pandemic, the situation today, help to expedite it? Probably yes, but it wouldn't have a big impact on the next coming months. It doesn't happen overnight to go to modular construction. It's not difficult at all, yeah. But you have to start at the right time. You just can't take a a project which is under design, and suddenly you turn it around and make a modular construction out of it. So you really have to start in the beginning with a proper strategy. And if I even, let's say, include the previous topic about technology, we always start with a digitization strategy. And this includes design, this includes construction, and this includes operation. And only, if you're able to add value in each of these stages, you should bring in technology where it makes most sense. Yeah, technology just as a gimmick doesn't help, and so is modular construction. There has to be a certain, let's say, benefit and added value. There has to be a return on the investment, what you're doing as a consultant or as a developer, in order to make it feasible. And it should be, I would say, first and foremost, be user-driven. Smart is good, technology is good, modular is good, but it always has to make sense. And if you're not clear with this from the beginning, in terms of your strategy for a project, you're spending a lot of money and have little or no benefit at all. And this is where we have to come in. And this is also where, let's say, this interdisciplinary approach, which we're trying to establish more and more in the market, will support. It's not only about a client and a project manager, and there's a consultant and a contractor. You have to bring these different parties very early on the table and discuss all this. What are the requirements for the projects? How to implement them? Get the best use from the expertise of the different parties. Also think about the operation, and only in this collaborative interdisciplinary approach you will make a positive impact on the project. You add value. Yeah? You do even value engineering at the same time, so to say, and that's the important part. Yeah? And then modular is definitely one thing which should be taken care of, because it has let's say, a lot of benefits which we see as well. Yeah? Modular design, modular construction, parametric modeling. We have done great examples here. And we can only, let's say, recommend in an early stage of a project, getting this all straight, get around a table and have these discussions with the different parties involved. And then you create the added value for projects and for your client.
Yeah. No, great. Thank you for that. I mean, I appreciate, obviously, you're not a manufacturer yourself, but I'm sure you have first-hand experience of dealing with that. Absolutely. If I could just move us on now to another subject, and one that I've found that's been very, very interesting in some of the figures that we're getting from the market recently. And I know myself from my own organization, Bentley Systems, that while you might think that the technology adoption during this crisis might be reducing, in terms of people aren't prepared to spend the money, or they're very cautious. But of course, what we're actually finding in some cases is quite the opposite. And of course that's to be welcomed, but one point in particular we've found is that, of course, cloud-based collaboration platforms, probably more so than any other technology, the adoption has just skyrocketed. And in fact, our own figures are showing that it's something like 4 times the adoption of any other product or solution that's available. So I mean, that's fantastic, and it brings with it all sorts of other capabilities. So I'd like to kind of pose the question to you, your own experience in this regard, but not just about cloud-based collaboration solutions, but also the fact that organizations, by having these solutions in place, then are finding they can do so many other things with the data that's available to them. And I think we were talking about a game changer. I think that for me is where we see people suddenly having the realization that maybe prior to the crisis they weren't totally convinced, you know, to invest or to go down that route. Now they've had to do it because of the conditions, but the benefits that they're seeing, of course, are quite dramatic. What's your own experience of that that sort of the cloud-based collaboration uptake, and what the clients are realizing from it, Naji?
So I think you're absolutely right. The current pandemic is actually accelerating consumption of cloud collaboration for sure. It's been a trigger. It's helping people. It's helping people cross the chasm of not trusting cloud collaboration. So you know, this is what I'm hoping long term would be a positive outcome of the really hard times we're in now. Having said that, some organizations have actually discovered the benefits before what's happened recently. And just like you said, they have an idea in mind of how they want to use the data in the future. What comes to mind here is the Red Sea Development Company. I mean, these guys are developing a massive area. They're attempting something unprecedented, and they're dealing with a supply chain that's across the globe. So for them, something like cloud collaboration is actually the backbone of their digital delivery, and it wasn't triggered by the pandemic. It was triggered by the fact that they want to use all this data to enable what they call the digital experience at the end. And this goes beyond, you know, the digital twin. They want their visitors in the future having or arriving at a high-end touristic area to have a seamless experience from their check-in at the hotel, well, from their check-in at the airport till they arrive at the hotel. They want that to be completely digitized, and the backbone is actually owning their own data, owning the 3D models of all their projects, and starting to put layers of how they consume this data. So they don't see cloud collaboration as something that just enables project execution, but enables a better experience for their users, you know, 10 or 20 years after project handover.
Yeah, great example. Absolutely, and that, you know, that's what I was saying, that the adoption is a fundamental part, but actually now it is a platform, or it's the you know, the foundation of what you then want to create on the top of that. Absolutely, and the abilities that gives you. A slightly different question for yourself, Stefan. Just the same idea though, this technology adoption that we've been seeing. But I'm wondering maybe something about, you know, reality capture and drones and scanning. Have we seen an increase in that use on projects? Has the crisis affected that, or were we already just in a natural, you know, increase of that use of that technology anyway?
We saw an increase in the past, and we definitely saw, let's say, a bigger need for it in the last few weeks and months. But again, it is nothing which changes overnight. But using technology to your own benefit is definitely now on everyone's mind. Yeah, the pandemic helped to think about technology in a different way. And is it, say, design and collaborative tools and softwares? On the one hand, it's also important for the construction industry, which is in many regards way behind. Yeah, and we are using, for example, in one of our projects in Abu Dhabi, drone surveillance. So we monitor the site through drones and report also progress through it. And yes, we have other projects in place where we we record with regular flights over the site the progress of the construction, for example, and have also a good and proper documentation in place. But these are all, let's say, only small elements in terms of technology, which is already happening, and we hope to see more to come in the future, where more and more technology will play a role in the construction industry as well. And there it helps to have, let's say, the early days properly planned with the design, maybe becoming modular construction, new technologies, thinking about also the different challenges which we all face. It's not only the pandemic. Everyone is forgetting the environment and the climate we are living in. And Naji said it before. Yeah, we have a climate crisis as well to cover and to address. And the construction industry is obviously has a big role to play with. And so technology can come in many ways, and not only construction itself, but also, let's say, the selection of materials, a cradle-to-cradle concept, yeah, sustainability. And there's also an element where technology can add a lot of value, make things much easier, smoother, and then we come back to value engineering as well. If we see building not only a piece of steel and concrete outside, but holding valuable resources, yeah, steel, glass, aluminium, copper, and so on. Yeah, this is something which we have to put into our mindset already today, if you think about design and construction. So we should not only look now for the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years in the pandemic. We really have to look today into the further future and what we need to change, where do we need to adapt to address climate change, to address autonomous driving, for example, parking requirements, cooling requirements, and the like. I think this is where we really have to push ourselves even more to go into the next level. Yeah, pandemic is one thing, and it's good. It ignites something, but we have to make ourselves even open much broader for the big concerns ahead. That's my opinion.
There's a lot of good points made there. You know, where we've focused so much on the consequences of this pandemic, that you, just as you rightly said there, you know, before this hit, our concerns were environmental, and it's almost like we've forgot one news story for another. Thank you for that, reminding us. If I can just take this opportunity to remind everyone on the call today, please to drop your questions in the chat box, and again with your email address. That way we can address your questions, hopefully on the call, but if we don't have enough time, then we've got your contact details, and we can connect with you afterwards. So please remember to drop any questions in the chat box. We were nicely set up there for our next topic. And I'd like to talk about off-site manufacturing, modular construction, in a bit more detail now. I think as an industry, we've definitely seen a shift to that technology, or to those processes in general anyway, and we're getting efficiency benefits, we're getting quality benefits, we're getting time and cost savings. And the whole construction industry was being driven, I think, towards that industry, you know, naturally. One of the reports from the UK, you know, and there's benefits have been driven from. Just want to.
Hello?
Manufacturing side of things.
Craig, sorry, I'm not sure I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is that any better?
No, Greg,
No?
you were breaking up. I believe we couldn't hear you properly.
Yeah.
Okay, is that better now? Am I back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Not sure what happened there. There we go. We're talking about technology and our. So your own views on this particular part of the construction industry. You, Stefan, if I could just come to you first, because you made a good point earlier, and that was that you don't just one day decide to be doing off-site manufacture, modular construction. It's not just a switch-over type thing. There's a lot more to be considered. Can we just talk about that a little bit? And again, if you're involved in projects where this process has been adopted, give us a feel for the sort of requirements of using this kind of construction methodology.
Sure. I must say I'm not the modular construction expert, yeah. So bear with me if I keep it very simple, yeah. And
we had hoped to have Baha.
Yeah. Well, I can give you two examples, yeah. And one is a project which we had here where it was, let's say, the construction of over 600 villas, and the design was done in a traditional way. But then the contractor wanted to change it, for example, to modular construction, and this was a huge effort. Yeah, so basically all benefits, all potential cost saving have been wiped out from day one. Yeah, so there was the idea to make it better, to make it modular, and it didn't work out because it was just at the wrong time. Yeah. But if you start at the right time, which I said earlier, is really from day one, about the design aspects. Yeah, this is where it has to come into modular parametric design, because here you benefit, let's say, with the software, with the tools, and keep a design process very simple, very organized, very lean as well. Yeah, not too many different details, and this is where it makes a lot of sense to do, let's say, a modular design. And then constructing it at the end is just a consequence to be modular as well. But you have to bring in the specialist contractors and suppliers, because it does not make any sense to think about what can be done, especially then in this market, to what you can really deliver. And well, I mean, you have companies like Catera, for example, who are obviously very, very strong and entering into the market here and in Saudi and in India with big ambitions, a lot of money, and coming from let's say, from a modular design and construction perspective as well. So it's definitely the trend, but you also have to make, let's say, the clients understand what are the benefits. Yeah, and it's not only construction; it is really about optimizing design, and then a modular construction is a good, I don't want to say side effect, but the benefit which comes with it.
If I know, again, you said you're not necessarily the expert yourself, but I just wondered, you had made a comment earlier about, rather than value engineering, we should be looking at, engineering value. Is off-site manufacture, modular construction, is it something we should be looking at for all projects from the beginning, regardless, because there's substantial savings, or is it just a project by project question?
I would say it is a project by project question. Yeah, modular design, modular construction can make sense, but not necessarily. And this is why it's so important in the very early days to sit with the client, to sit within an interdisciplinary team, and discuss exactly those points and see what does make sense. There's no point in pushing a project to something there's no benefit to it. Yeah, we all have to be in the next years to come very lean, very efficient, and modular can help, but it's not the route for every single project. Yeah, you have special architecture, you have special requirements, but the mindset should be, let's say, somewhere interdisciplinary, modular, and see the benefit out of it. That's my take.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Naji, if we can just extend this discussion a little bit now. What I've started to realize in this sort of modular construction or offsite manufacturing world is that 3D printing, certainly from a concrete perspective, from a construction perspective, 3D printing certainly seems to fit into that world very nicely, and there's some real benefits to be had from, the 3D printing adoption, but in an off-site manufactured environment. Could you give us again maybe some of the experiences from your own perspective in relation to that?
Sure. So first, I just would like to reiterate something that Stefan said, and he said, we need to use the technology to a user's benefit. So there's always a why. For me, for modular construction, there is low-hanging fruit now, which is buildings with a lot of repetitive units. Those could be schools, hospitals, hotels, and we've actually started to see it. So one of the really large owners now is Marriott, and they have started 5 years ago experimenting with modular construction on low-rise buildings. And now they are completing a building in Manhattan that's 26 floors, made from nearly 170 different modules. So these modules have been manufactured off-site, shipped, and then they are being trucked into the site and actually attached to the building. In those cases, and in the cases where we have these repetitive units, I think I wouldn't say that the complete future of construction is modular, but we need to be thinking about a large percentage of our buildings being actually done modular. And aesthetically, there's a lot of area for creativity that could be done by the architects, by the designers. So we're not saying, I'm not saying there's no diversity in buildings anymore. I'm saying that what we can automate, we should be automating, and modular construction gives us a way of automating some things. For 3D printing, till now, it is mostly done for aesthetic purposes in construction so far. So there has been a lot of experiments of 3D printers laying down concrete different ways, either robotic arms, gantry systems, powder beds, but these are seldom part of the structure of a building, right? There's a lot of building codes that need to be looked after. So we will not see, additive manufacturing replace traditional techniques in the next few years, for sure. Maybe in the far future, the future of construction could be a 3D printer using material in situ and actually laying it down in the building. I don't know what happens in 100 in 100 years. We've as humans we've suffered when trying to predict what happens 50 years from now. Having said this, I think additive manufacturing will become a value engineering tool when we couple it with generative design. And I look at manufacturing here and I draw some inspiration. So algorithms now in manufacturing, they optimize parts of machines. And these optimized parts are often too organic, or they look too complex to be manufactured traditionally by casting, by molding. So additive manufacturing gives us the ability in manufacturing to make better parts simply because we can manufacture them now. And I think this will transition into construction. So in the future, we will optimize building parts. I can think of structural elements, for example, that could look a lot more organic, a lot more complicated, and then we can additively manufacturing them. And the process, saving a lot of material, saving a lot of time for the fabrication. And this is where I think we would combine the additive manufacturing on-site with the modular construction to actually make better buildings and make them with a lot less impact on the planet.
That was really great. I think you just summed up so many different topics there. That was perfect. Thank you very much. We're certainly aware, very aware of time. We started a little bit late, and I have to apologise for that. We had a few more questions that we had planned, but I think really what we want to do to just keep it on time is possibly move over to the questions that our audience have been asking, and then we'll try and identify obviously what the who should be the appropriate person depending on the question. So we've got a first question which has come in. What would the possible impact of using technology for decision making on value engineering proposals be? Okay, so making use of technology for decision making on value engineering I'm thinking this might be you, Naji, and maybe this is a AI or machine learning or something.
Yeah. Yes.
Would you like to comment first?
Sure. Yes. So I'll also actually use an actual example. The largest developer in Japan is called Daiwa House. And what Daiwa House use now is an algorithm to actually optimize what they should build on a given plot of land that they acquire in Tokyo. So apparently, well, plots of lands are very are rare to come by and are very expensive. So they want to maximize the ROI of what they should build. Now, algorithms that were built especially for them can look at requirements from the municipality, can look at their supply chain, and they can actually suggest to the designer that you don't need a building now with 10 two-bedroom units. Maybe 8 units would be a better return on your investment, even if you're selling them for less money, because your cost is considerably less. So as these technologies become more and more mainstream, I think something like an AI algorithm, coupled with generative design, is the best collaborator for a designer. The designer still has all the intelligence, all the experience, but the automation bit, what happens in the background, machines can do much better than we can. So it's sort of having an engineering personal assistant, run through these 100 proposals for me and show me the best 10. And then the designer can guide the algorithm and where to go. I see this happening, and I see it actually much faster than much closer than people think.
Yeah, I would like to add, this is definitely the way to go.
Carry on.
Sorry. Yeah, no, that's definitely the way to go, and we do it also here in-house, that we have, let's say, a validation model which is live and adapting the changes from the design to the cost, capex, but also OpEx cost. What does this little change mean to your investment cost and operational cost, and therefore the ROI for the whole project? This is, let's say, an instant tool basically to support any design decisions, and this will become more and more the trend.
Yeah, and I think actually in both your answers, you've actually answered the next question that was put at the bottom of the screen. Which just how far will that AI go? To replace that the human factor, and you've rightly said, that the decision, there's lots of optimization and decisions that can be taken, but ultimately that sort of final decision needs to come down to probably the human factor, the engineer with the relevant experience that he brings to select the sort of final version that will be used. So moving on now, another question. COVID-19 has created a lot of new challenges. Will there be a push to alternative delivery methods on sites? Kind of touched on this, but would anyone, Stefan, would you like to, is there anything there for you? Alternative delivery methods on sites?
I guess, as you said, we covered it already. I don't expect that things will change very quickly, especially here in this part of the world in terms of alternative delivery methods. I think it's a process where things will improve. Is it, let's say, delivery to site, but also delivery, let's say, of the project, and you don't change the industry overnight. So this would take more time, and I guess until the industry has adapted. I hope we are in a different situation out of this pandemic right now, but definitely any improvement will be welcomed.
Okay. Another question that we've got, technology still seems to be an option. What will drive companies to adopt it as part of the process? I think if you don't mind, I'll just kind of comment on that myself. I do think we've touched on this really already. I think that we've seen a lot of changes happen in this COVID-19 time, and it has driven adoption. Absolutely. We talked about the two companies. Company who optioned before the crisis and were doing it anyway, and then ones who have maybe had to adopt it because of the crisis. So I think that really, sorry, has really pushed the adoption, and I think that will just become more. I'm not sure it's still an option. I know the person said that. I think really now it's becoming the fact that it's not an option anymore. Not fact, will AI and generative design having modular and off-site construction? I think we've answered. To be fair, the person missed it, then we could maybe check the recording afterwards. Do we have another question that we could move on to?
Yeah, and in the meantime, just to add what you said, Greg, in terms of technology, I mean, technology is a very broad word. If you think about construction, you can apply technology in the design phase, in your products, in your delivery, in modular construction, in the operation. Now, I guess we have lost Greg as well. So it is very broad. We could cover probably a whole day on one specific subject only. So technology is definitely the way forward, and a very broad topic, just to give a quick answer. So if we lost Greg, we go ahead with the next question, I would say, Naji.
Yes, sure.
What are the biggest challenges for companies transitioning to cloud collaboration, remote working during the pandemic? I guess that's your question, Naji.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, this is probably more a psychological problem anymore. It's no longer limited by technology, right? I think technology has proved this part of technology, because as you said, technology is a very big term, but cloud collaboration, remote working is easily done with technology. The only non-psychological barrier I would see is, when you have designers sitting across the room, the process is simply easier, because a piece of paper is being moved from one person to another. Someone is adding a comment, removing something. So we still have to make it as seamless as an in-person collaboration, but we're getting there. From a pure technology perspective, I don't see major challenges, to be honest. Unless you're living in a place where bandwidth and latency are a big issue.
Yes, very true. Okay, Greg, you're back, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Technology again. Yeah, a good question. Looking at data, technology will create more data. Is security evolving to protect it? And what about data ownership when it comes to models? Wow, there's a topic. My goodness. I know from my own perspective that this was a huge discussion topic recently. Is especially this data ownership of I think its own right, to be fair. Do either of you have a comment on this particular?
Yeah. If you can hear me, I'm happy
Yep,
to
on you go,
answer.
Stefan.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
go ahead.
And I keep it short, so there's time for Naji as well. Yeah, it's creating an incredible amount of data, and thinking about hosting all this data is a different subject. But security and ownership of data is really the key moving forward. As we know, data is the new currency, and we are in discussions, let's say, on our projects with digitization strategies and the like, in implementation of digital business models, etc. Really, who is the owner of that data? Let's say a building generates into the future, and there are different options in place, but this must be defined from the very early days. And security is also key. Now, having all this technology installed, you have to look about cyber security. You have to be aware about cyber attacks. We have, and there are specialist companies available which we bring into our projects, up to, let's say, de-droning, where you think about an assault to a building, for whatever reason. All these elements suddenly you have to consider, and there's where you need new people on your design team and around the desk to really get the latest into your project as well, so that you create something which is also be possible to protect.
No, thank you. Thanks for that, Stefan. I think probably this is our last question. And I think, Naji, maybe it falls to yourself. I know that you were talking about this sort of this topic briefly. What about the new materials? You know, what is the replacement for concrete? Is there one?
Well, now, no. I think long term, we will be building in whatever material you can find on site. And I look at, this might seem science fiction now, but I look at space exploration. If we're ever to go to Mars, and we're trying to now, we need to 3D print shelters over there from material that we find there, right? Now, this is financially unfeasible, probably unfathomable now. But what stops us from doing so 100 years from now?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm being told we've got time for one more. I think maybe Stefan, this one could fall to yourself. As far as we're concerned, value engineering exercises requires a session on function analysis. How is this implemented? I'm guessing you would be involved in that value engineering exercise?
Yeah, again, if we talk about, let's say, a value engineering exercise, maybe very late in the project, then when it's too late, and we just discuss more about cost cutting, we see value engineering or engineering value as a continuous process from day one of a project, and therefore, all the, let's say, functions, all the requirements must be properly analyzed. Yeah, we can't look just only into the construction, but you have to very much also take into consideration the operation of the building. What does it mean if you do a design change to save money? What does it have an impact on operation, on maintenance? And I guess if the question went into this direction, it needs to be considered. Else you do just plain and sorry to say, stupid cost cutting, and this is definitely not adding value. It's actually probably just deleting value from a project, and this is why you need a lot of expertise to do proper value engineering, and this has to be a continuous process throughout the project in order to deliver at the end the product or the project which you had initially agreed with your client.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stefan. I think we're going to close at that now. We're aware of time, but also we've covered up many of the questions. As we said before, if your questions haven't been covered, as long as we've got your email address, we'll get in touch with you. I'd like to thank my panelists today and also the audience for attending and for providing those great questions. And I'd also like to just thank the panelists for sharing their experience and their project knowledge, which was great. You gave us a number of real examples where technology adoption was making a difference. So thank you very much for that. This was the last live session for the 2020 Value Engineering Summit. However, tomorrow a special newsletter from Middle East Construction News will share new content, as well as links to all the panels and presentations that were shared over the last few days. We look forward to seeing you all again, and many thanks to everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. Thanks, Naji.
Thank you.